The broken heart has its own language, doesn't it? A universal tongue made of deafening silence, of empty spaces in a bed that feels impossibly large, and of a single haunting question that echoes in the soul's deepest chambers. What now? Some seek the answer in the cold, distant light of the stars, others at the bottom of a glass that never seems full enough. And then there are those who turn, in a final act of faith, or pure, unadulterated desperation, to older gateways, portals made of paper and ink, where the voices of destiny, desire, and all that has been lost merge in a dangerous, intoxicating whisper. This is the story of Clara, a woman whose very soul was trapped in that precise, desolate winter. She dared to ask the cards that question, searching desperately for a glimpse of spring. She asked if she would ever love again, expecting a simple promise, a straightforward yes. But what she received was not a promise. It was a presence, an answer that crossed the veil, carrying the scent of rain on dry earth, and the heavy weight of a sorrow that was not her own. Settle in and listen closely, for I am about to tell you what happens when the love you are searching for has already died, long before it ever had the chance to speak your name. The human mind is a talented, and at times, a cowardly weaver. It weaves intricate explanations for everything, creating cloaks of logic to shield us from the biting cold of the inexplicable. Clara tried to wrap herself in this tattered cloak. The scent was just old dampness rising from the floorboards, the card a mere coincidence of shuffled paper. But the presence cared little for her rational excuses. The aroma of rain followed her down the street on sun-drenched days, an invisible, personal aura. And the card, the stubborn 2 of cups, refused to remain in its drawer, reappearing on her bedside table like a secret that refuses to be buried. The first true attempt at dialogue, the first irrefutable proof, came through steam. On the bathroom mirror, still warm and opaque from the shower, the breath of someone who was not her left a circular mark on the glass. For a moment, before the real world could reclaim it, a shape formed with startling clarity. It was not a word, but the delicate, intricate outline of what appeared to be a sycamore leaf, a symbol without a sender, a message in a fogged glass bottle. She wiped the mirror with a trembling hand, but the image was already seared, a permanent brand upon her memory. Fear is a curious animal. When fed with the bread of the unknown, it can grow to an immense size and devour reason whole, or it can fast, weaken, and transmute into something else entirely, something far more profound, into fascination. Clara, in her heart of hearts, realized this was not an aggression. It was a calm, almost shy insistence, a plea for attention. The presence did not want to harm her. It wanted to be seen. And for the first time since the silence had taken root in her life, instead of retreating, she leaned into the mystery. What changed was not the whisper from nowhere, but the one who was finally willing to listen. When we finally accept a mystery, we grant it the power to guide us. Clara was no longer a passive victim of strange occurrences. She had transformed into an explorer of her own haunting. With the cold card of the 2 of Cups in her hand, no longer as an omen, but as a compass, she posed a new question to the silence. Her voice, once hesitant, was now firm. It was no longer about her future, but about her ghostly present. Who are you? The answer did not come in words, but in the now familiar scent of rain, which now seemed to gently pull her, like an invisible thread tied to her wrist, toward the front door. It was a summons to step out of her own story and into another's. To follow a scent through a bustling city is an act of pure faith, a form of poetic madness. Clara walked, not with her eyes, which saw only concrete and the hurried rush of strangers, but with her soul, guided by that invisible trail of petrichor. The aroma led her away from the wide avenues, down narrow alleys she had never noticed before, to the door of an old bookstore, its name the Lost Tome, nearly faded by the sun and years. It was a sanctuary where thousands of forgotten stories waited for someone to reopen them. She entered, and the smell of old paper and dust mingled with the scent of rain, as if two worlds were converging in that small, quiet shop. She wandered between the tall, crowded shelves, feeling the presence intensify with each step, a subtle warmth in the air. She stopped before a section of poetry, and as she leaned in to read the titles, her own warm breath fogged the glass of a small cabinet door. There in the momentary vapor, the same symbol of the sycamore leaf drew itself for a second, sharp and deliberate, pointing to a specific, nameless, hardcover book. With her heart pounding in her throat, she took it. And from within its pages, like a dry leaf falling in autumn, a faded photograph slid out. The image of a young man with kind eyes and a sad, gentle smile, a face she had never seen before, but whose soul she felt she already knew intimately. To have a face is to have a mystery. To have a name is to have the key that can unlock it. At home, under the soft, forgiving light of a single lamp, Clara stared at the portrait of the unknown young man and felt a wave of intimacy that defied all logic and time itself. She no longer needed to ask who, but how. "How do I call you?" And as she gazed at her own melancholic reflection in the dark glass of the window, which mirrored the room like a somber painting, the answer came. The glass fogged over as if someone had sighed upon it, and 4 letters were slowly drawn, traced by an invisible finger. Leo. With his name now sounding like a talisman in her mind, she returned to the bookstore the following day. The old shop owner, a man whose eyes had read more than all the books on his shelves, recognized the face in the photograph instantly. A nostalgic smile touched his lips. The story he told was one of a sad, unfinished beauty. Leo, a gentle poet, a dreamer who loved the smell of rain and had worked there years ago. He had departed far too soon, the victim of a foolish, senseless accident. A quiet young man who had spent his final months secretly in love with a girl he saw pass by the shop window every single day, but to whom he never found the courage to speak a single word. In that very instant, the veil was torn, completely asunder. All the pieces clicked into place, forming a painful, beautiful tapestry of love and regret. The leaf symbol, the book of poetry, the smell of rain. It was all him. The spirit had not been haunting her. He had been finally declaring his love. The love Clara had asked the cards about was not some future romance with a stranger. It was this one, born from his grief and her loneliness. In her room, the scent of petrichor enveloped her like a tangible embrace, and the card on the table seemed to glow with a soft, gentle warmth. She was irremediably, impossibly in love with a memory. To live in a love affair with a ghost is to reside in a house made entirely of twilight. It is indescribably beautiful. It is profoundly calm. But there is no sunrise, nor is there the promise of night. Clara found herself existing in this sublime limbo, with the scent of rain as her faithful companion, and the world of the living seeming more and more like a distant dream. A black and white film from another era. She realized she was no longer mourning her past. She was living exclusively for a presence. And love, true love, on any plane of existence, is not an anchor that chains us to a safe harbor. It is the powerful impulse toward the open sea. She understood, with a clarity that ached, that the greatest proof of her love for Leo would not be to cling to him, but to release him from that endless echo. On a night of the full moon, which bathed her room in a silvery ethereal light, she prepared a small farewell ritual. This was not an exorcism born of fear, but a ceremony of the deepest gratitude. Holding his photograph in one hand and the two of cups in the other, she whispered to the air. She thanked him for crossing the veil to heal her, for teaching her that her heart, which she had judged to be stone, still knew how to love. And she said that because she loved him so dearly, she needed to let him follow his path and allow herself to follow hers. She burned the card and the photograph together in a small ceramic bowl that had belonged to her grandmother. The smoke rose in a thick, fragrant spiral, and for one last brief moment, the room was filled with the sweetest, most intense scent of petrichor she had ever experienced. It was a goodbye, a thank you. As she looked at herself in the mirror, the glass remained pristine, clear. For the first time in a very long time, she saw only her own reflection, but she was not the same woman. She was someone who carried an impossible love, not as an open wound, but as a serene and indelible part of her soul. The love had not ended. It had transformed into strength. The story of Clara and Leo teaches us that love sometimes finds us in the most unexpected of ways, in the darkest of places, even across the very veil of death. She did not simply find a new love, she learned to transform the very nature of her grief into a creative, life-affirming force. Her journey poses a question to all of us. What do we do with the ghosts we love, with the memories that sweetly haunt us? Perhaps the truest farewell is not to forget, but to learn how to carry that presence as a part of ourselves, making us more complex, more human, and ultimately, more complete. The cards have been put away, but the conversation continues in the whispers of the night. What echo did the story of Clara and Leo leave within you? What are your own reflections on loves that defy time and logic? The space below is a sanctuary for your impressions, a safe place to share the feelings this story has awakened. Your voice and your story are welcome here. And if you feel the call to unravel more mysteries of the human soul, if you seek a place to listen to the echoes of the heart, then join our circle. Subscribe to the Madame Morgana channel and light your candle with us for each new story. The veil between the worlds is thin, and there is always something or someone waiting for us on the other side.